Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone. Representatives from the U.S. Attorney's Office in Kansas City, Missouri, say that a 50-year-old man has been arrested and is facing charges this week after he allegedly became unruly while aboard a plane and tried to open one of its doors mid-flight. According to reports, the incident took place on the afternoon of February 13th, while American Airlines Flight 1775 was on its way from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. While it's unclear exactly how the commotion began, midway through the flight, one of the passengers, later identified as 50-year-old Juan Rivas, began to create a disturbance. Things escalated when Rivas allegedly walked into the cockpit area of the plane, grabbing a plastic utensil and holding it like a shank. He then reportedly grabbed a small champagne bottle, which he tried to break on a counter, before kicking and shoving a drink service cart into one of the flight attendants. Finally, Rivas grabbed the handle of one of the plane's exit doors and began wrenching on it, trying to get it open. Thinking quickly, one of the flight attendants grabbed a nearby coffee pot and hit Rivas twice in the head. This slowed him down enough that several other people were able to intervene, successfully bringing Rivas to the floor. Apparently, this was no small feat. Rivas is reportedly 6'3" and 240 pounds, and it took at least 4 people, one of whom was a police officer, to properly restrain him. Once the 50-year-old's hands and feet were secured with zip ties and duct tape, the plane made an emergency landing at Kansas City International Airport, where Rivas was arrested. At the time of this recording, Rivas has been charged with 1 count of assaulting and intimidating a flight attendant and thereby interfering in the performance of their duties. He remains in police custody. This week, representatives from the Georgia Office of the Inspector General announced several charges against a former state official after she was accused of faking multiple pregnancies as part of a scheme to fraudulently obtain paid leave. According to reports, at the time the crimes took place, the suspect, 43-year-old Robin Folsom, was working as the Director of External Affairs for the Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation Agency. A press release from this week states that she was in charge of supervising the agency's marketing and media communications. In October of 2020, Folsom reportedly informed the Human Resources Division of the GVRA that she was pregnant, and in May of the following year announced that she had given birth. This announcement was accompanied by an email from a man claiming to be the father of Folsom's child, who said that the 43-year-old had been advised by her doctor that she required several weeks of bed rest following the delivery. The GVRA then allowed 7 weeks of paid leave, which it claims it would not have otherwise approved. However, when Folsom claimed to be pregnant again less than 3 months after returning from her leave, several people started to become suspicious. This was actually the 3rd time she had apparently claimed to be pregnant, with her first child allegedly being born less than 3 months before she announced the October 2020 pregnancy. As a side note, it's unclear if she obtained paid leave during all of the fake pregnancies, or whether it was just for the second one. When the Office of the Inspector General began an investigation, more red flags emerged. Several of the people that worked with Folsom claimed that when they had been shown photos of her new baby, the pictures were inconsistent, and the child appeared to have varying skin tones. Another coworker came forward with an even bigger revelation, claiming they believed that Folsom had been wearing a fake pregnancy stomach after witnessing a portion of her stomach appear to, quote, come away from her body in March of 2021. When investigators did some more digging, they were unable to find any birth certificates listing Folsom as a mother, and a review of her medical and insurance records allegedly showed nothing indicating she had ever delivered a child. When the 43-year-old was confronted with this information in October of 2021, she reportedly resigned from her position at the GVRA. According to investigators, the children and the baby bump weren't the only things that Folsom fabricated. When they looked into the email reportedly sent by the father of Folsom's child in May of 2021, they allegedly found out that this man also didn't exist. On February 10th, Folsom was indicted by a Fulton County grand jury on 4 felony charges, 3 counts of false statements, and 1 count of identity fraud. Authorities on the Hawaiian island of Oahu say that they have arrested and charged a 34-year-old man with murder this week, a crime that was the alleged result of a deadly love triangle. According to reports, the whole story began in May of last year, when a Honolulu woman named Joyce Thompson began having an affair with her acupuncturist, 47-year-old John Tokuhara. The two continued their relationship for 2 months, until Joyce's 34-year-old husband Eric found out about the affair. After that, Joyce said that things had to come to an end between them. According to some unconfirmed reports, Tokuhara didn't want the affair to end, though it's unclear if he continued to reach out to the woman. Regardless, it appears that it only took a few more months for things to end in tragedy. At about 6:15 p.m. on January 12th, 2 days before the Thompsons' 5th wedding anniversary, investigators say that Eric showed up at Tokuhara's acupuncture clinic in Waipahu, armed with a gun. Upon entering the clinic, he allegedly shot Tokuhara before fleeing in a white Chevy Silverado. Eric was reportedly in and out of the clinic in just 48 seconds. We know this because investigators were allegedly able to obtain surveillance video from inside the clinic, which reportedly captured some of the attack. Additional video footage from the area captured the white Chevy, which was eventually traced back to Eric Thompson. Apparently, detectives spoke to the owners of at least 53 similar white trucks, and Eric was the only one who didn't have an alibi. Even more video footage taken near the 34-year-old's house in East Honolulu was able to add further details to the timeline of the case, and a search of his residence recovered more than a dozen firearms, some of which were allegedly unregistered. In what can perhaps be described as a tragic coincidence, Eric Thompson was arrested on Valentine's Day and has now been charged with second-degree murder and carrying or use of a firearm in the commission of a felony. At the time of this recording, he has been released on a $1 million bail. Authorities in Miami-Dade County, Florida say that they have arrested a 33-year-old woman this week after she allegedly hired a hitman to kill a longtime enemy, a crime which she reportedly paid for with money from a pandemic relief loan. According to reports, 24-year-old TSA officer LaShante Jones was gunned down in front of her 3-year-old daughter on May 3rd of last year, and she was just steps from her home in the Miami suburb of Homestead. Though surveillance camera footage led police to the alleged gunman, 29-year-old Javon Carter, detectives quickly learned that the case was more complicated. An investigation reportedly revealed that Carter had been paid to carry out the crime by a 33-year-old woman named Jasmine Martinez. The two were allegedly introduced to one another by a mutual acquaintance named Romeo Robinson, who authorities say helped plan the murder from jail. Sources allege that Martinez and LaShante Jones were longtime enemies. Their feud reportedly began in 2016, when Martinez attacked Jones because she was dating her ex-boyfriend. Though a case related to that incident was dropped, Martinez allegedly never got over the dispute about the ex-boyfriend, and in 2018, she was arrested again for punching Jones in the face. Things escalated further when in February of 2020, Martinez's new boyfriend allegedly attacked and robbed Jones in the parking lot of a courthouse after they had just come out of a hearing related to the 2018 assault case. The craziness didn't end there, though. In March of 2021, just 2 months before she was murdered, Jones told police that she was being harassed by Martinez and her new boyfriend once again. This time, they were allegedly offering her money not to testify against the boyfriend for the parking lot assault and robbery, and wanted her to tell police that he wasn't armed at the time. According to reports, Martinez was able to get the $10,000 she paid to Carter to carry out the hit on Jones by securing a $15,000 Paycheck Protection Program loan, which she claimed was for her one-woman beauty salon business. It's unclear if the business ever existed at all. Martinez was arrested this week and has now been charged with first-degree murder, attempted murder, and conspiracy to commit murder. Javon Carter and Romeo Robinson were already in prison at the time of Martinez's arrest on a number of related and unrelated charges. Though Martinez has claimed repeatedly that she had nothing to do with Jones's murder, investigators say they have a number of pieces of evidence connecting her to the crime. These include a video that Carter posted to social media allegedly showing off the money he had been paid to commit the murder, evidence of at least 127 communications that the pair exchanged, as well as months of recorded jailhouse phone calls, during which Martinez reportedly spoke with Robinson and planned the crime. At the time of this recording, Martinez remains in police custody. Authorities in Ulster County, New York say that they have successfully located a missing 6-year-old girl this week after she was allegedly kidnapped by her biological parents more than 2 years ago. According to reports, the incident began in July of 2019 when 32-year-old Kirk Schultes Jr. and 33-year-old Kimberly Cooper lost custody of their 2 young girls. It's unclear why the 2 parents lost custody. However, what we do know is that on the day that they were supposed to turn over the children to their court-appointed guardian, the younger of their 2 daughters, Paisley, abruptly disappeared. The older daughter was at school at the time and thus was safely placed in the care of the legal guardian. Though police suspected that Schultes and Cooper were responsible for the disappearance of their daughter from the beginning, they were never able to prove it. As time passed, Schultes moved from western New York to live with his father, Kurt Schultes Sr., in the town of Saugerties. He told authorities that Cooper had left him and moved to Pennsylvania. Both parents said they hadn't seen Paisley since the day of her disappearance. While repeated searches of Kurt Schultes Sr.'s home came up empty, authorities were persistent until finally this week they received a new mystery tip-off that Paisley was somewhere in the house. After about an hour of searching, an eagle-eyed officer spotted something strange on a section of staircase in the home's basement. When he opened it up, he found both Paisley and her mother Kimberly Cooper hiding inside. According to police, the Harry Potter-esque hiding place had been used to conceal Paisley during previous searches of the house and was well hidden. Inside were a mess of blankets and pillows. However, the space was described as cold and damp. Though thankfully it appears that Paisley has been well taken care of during the time she's been missing, reports state that the 6-year-old hasn't been to school since her disappearance. At the time of this recording, Schultes, his father, and Cooper are all in police custody. Each has been charged with custodial interference and endangering the life of a child. According to reports, Paisley has now been reunited with her older sister. This week, representatives from Florida's Orange County Sheriff's Department released a report about a recent battery and domestic violence case, the details of which have quickly gained attention online due to the rather unique setting where the case took place: inside of Walt Disney World. According to the website Walt Disney World News Today, which is dedicated to covering news about the beloved theme park, the incident began one night last October when 2 sisters from New Jersey went out for what was supposed to be an evening of fun. The 29-year-old and 31-year-old were vacationing in Orlando with other family members at the time, but on this particular night apparently went out as just the 2 of them. After arriving in Disney Springs, a section of the park dedicated to themed retail, dining, and entertainment, the 2 women had dinner at a steakhouse. After that, they went for drinks at an Irish bar, where it seems they consumed what can only be described as a generous amount of alcohol. It was this alcohol that allegedly provided the fuel for what transpired next. Let's just say, it was devoid of any of the park's trademark Disney magic. According to reports, the problem began when the 2 sisters left the bar sometime after midnight and realized that both of their phones had died. Though Disney security helped them call an Uber, the driver apparently took one look at the women when he arrived and said that they were too drunk to get into his vehicle. As the women waited for a taxi to be called so that they could finally be driven back to their hotel, they reportedly got into an argument. Things got more and more heated until the older sister called the younger one a bad mom and slapped her. The situation reportedly only escalated from there, with both sisters punching, slapping, and pulling each other's hair. A security manager tried to separate the women. However, the peace was short-lived when the older sister slipped in the younger sister's vomit and continued to try and fight her after falling into some nearby bushes. It was at this point that the younger sister allegedly removed her dress entirely before continuing to throw punches. When Orange County deputies arrived at the scene, both of the women were apparently screaming and crying. They attempted to question the younger sister who had been hit first. However, all she wanted to talk about was how much she didn't like her sister's boyfriend. Both of the women were arrested for domestic violence, battery, and disorderly intoxication. Luckily for the women, the case was dropped near the end of last year when the state attorney's office declined to pursue the case after both sisters requested that the other not be prosecuted. As a result, neither woman's name was released in the report. What's perhaps most fortunate of all for the two women, though, is the fact that Disney stated that they do not have surveillance footage of the drunken naked brawl. Authorities in Allegheny County, Pennsylvania say that they have arrested and charged a suspect this week following the brutal murder of a 38-year-old Uber driver. According to reports, Christina Spicuzza was reported missing by family members on February 11th after she failed to return home from driving for Uber the night before. The next day, concerns were further increased when police found Christina's abandoned vehicle on a street in the borough of Pitcairn. Sadly, just a few hours after the recovery of the vehicle, Christina's lifeless body was also discovered, this time by a delivery driver in Monroeville. The 38-year-old had died from a single gunshot wound to the head, and her body had been left in a wooded area near the 500 block of Rosecrest Drive. A look at Christina's trip history on the Uber app led police to a 22-year-old woman who said that her boyfriend, 22-year-old Calvin Crew, had used her phone to request the ride. Though Crew reportedly denied any wrongdoing, a search of the area where he was supposedly dropped off yielded a crucial piece of evidence: the dash cam from Christina's car. According to reports, the dash cam captured Christina picking up Crew on the night that she was killed, as well as the chilling conversation the two had before Christina was murdered. The footage allegedly begins with Crew getting into the 38-year-old's vehicle armed with a handgun, which he proceeds to point at the back of her head. She replies, "You've got to be joking." After that, Christina reportedly attempts to plead with Crew, telling him she has 4 kids. Crew simply replies, "I got a family too. Now drive." The footage allegedly continues for a short time from there, with Christina repeatedly trying to ask Crew to spare her life. Crew continues to tell her to complete the trip, and at one point allegedly tells her everything will be alright if she does what he says. The video reportedly ends with Crew reaching forward and grabbing Christina's dash cam. In addition to this damning evidence, authorities say that the alibi that Crew provided to them for the night of the murder didn't add up. He claimed he took a bus in the area at the time, but no footage of him could be found at the station where he claimed to be. Crew was arrested on February 17th and has now been charged with murder, robbery, and tampering with evidence. Now that charges have been laid against Crew, it appears that investigators are still trying to work out whether his girlfriend was also involved in the crime. Aside from her phone being used to request the fatal ride, she reportedly sent him a text message saying, quote, "I'm not going to jail if we get caught." Other reports seem to suggest that it was her handgun that could have been used as the murder weapon. However, at the time of this recording, no charges have yet been laid against her. Representatives from the NYPD say that they have arrested and charged a 25-year-old man this week after he allegedly stalked and brutally murdered a woman as she returned home to her apartment. According to reports, the incident began at approximately 4:20 a.m. on February 13th, when 35-year-old Christina Lee was dropped off just 50 feet from her apartment building in Lower Manhattan's Chinatown. As Lee walked towards the entrance of her building, she allegedly had no idea that she was being followed by a man named Asamid Nash, who had been hiding out in a nearby alcove when he spotted her. Surveillance footage taken from inside and outside the residence reportedly shows Nash sneak up behind Lee as she opens the door, making sure not to be detected. It's alleged that Nash then followed Christina up the stairs to her 6th-floor apartment, ambushing her and pushing his way inside once she arrived at her front door. Neighbors called police moments later after they heard Christina screaming from inside her home. When officers arrived at the apartment, Nash allegedly tried to imitate a woman's voice, saying that the police weren't needed and refusing to allow them in. Authorities responded by breaking down the door. Sadly, by the time police made their way inside, it was too late. Christina was dead, having been brutally stabbed more than 40 times. Reports state that she was also found naked from the waist up. Nash was allegedly found hiding under Christina's bed with a stab wound to his torso and cuts to his hands and shoulder. Needless to say, Christina's murder has terrified and angered residents of the city, especially because Nash reportedly had an extensive criminal record leading up to the chilling crime. According to reports, Christina was a creative music producer for the music platform Splice and had moved to Manhattan less than a year ago from New Jersey. She was described by friends as a beautiful, independent, and strong woman. At the time of this recording, Nash is currently being held without bail and is facing charges of first-degree murder and first-degree burglary, as well as other related charges. That's it for this edition of Crimes of the Week. If you enjoyed our video, don't forget to like and subscribe to Crime Zone for more true crime content like this, making sure to hit the notification bell to stay up to date with our latest releases. Thank you for watching.